Monthly Mayhem is back. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Monthly Mayhem. This time we're getting back to the very first challenge that we ever did on Monthly Mayhem, and that is a top speed challenge. The whole goal of Monthly Mayhem is to take a vehicle and try and do something with it that it was never intended to do. And in this season of the Monthly Mayhem challenge, Matt from the Scale Builders Guild and myself will be taking these Traxxas TRX6s and turning them into top speed machines. This version of the Monthly Mayhem challenge has been tagged the OMG63, and that is because this is the AMG63 Traxxas TRX6. So AMG, OMG, you get what we're going for, right? The format for Monthly Mayhem is that Matt and I take a vehicle and we try and upgrade it to achieve the goal that we're after in 1 month's time. This is the first video, and then we'll have 4 more following. And in that period, you'll see us transforming these vehicles into dedicated speed machines. Now, obviously, the platform for this challenge was agreed upon, this TRX6 here, but the other rules that we've put in place are not overly extensive, but enough to try and keep this somewhat fair. First, we have to run the stock body or the stock style body. Traxxas also sent a clear version of this body, but for me, I'm gonna run this stock black body. And then after I've completely thrashed this body during the competition, then I'll have a clean body to put on this vehicle because I'm actually kind of stoked to own one of these Traxxas TRX6s. Next rule, both rear axles have to be driven. So no taking the guts out of the rear axle and just letting it spin or, kind of drag along behind. Both axles have to be powered. It's gonna add a challenge because there's gonna be a lot of stress going through that middle axle. In addition to saying that both rear axles have to be powered, the truck has to stay solid axle. So no swapping in a faster 6x6 platform underneath of this, even though one doesn't really exist. We're trying to keep this fairly TRX6 based. We also must maintain the wheelbase of this vehicle. So no moving axles around or stretching it out. They all have to stay where they're at. We did not put any restrictions on the track width, so we don't have to worry about what tires and wheel offsets we're running to try and keep the width in check. We can pretty much run whatever we want, although Matt and I are both probably going to keep that fairly in check just so that we can kind of get a handle on our aerodynamics. And then getting into the power plant area. Traxxas has provided both Matt and I with the Traxxas VXL 8S ESC. This is the ESC that they run in their x-maxx. And then they gave us the 540 XL motor. This is the motor you'll find in the Traxxas Max. Now, I believe that motor is typically run on 4S. Up to 6S might happen. Now, as an additional challenge, Matt and I have agreed to give a 3 mph bonus to whichever of the 2 vehicles gets voted best styling during the challenge. We're probably gonna have to do that before the week of the finale, just so we can factor it in before those final speeds come in, just to see who is going to inch out the victory. So those are the rules and the basics of the challenge. Matt and I will both be monitoring the speed of these vehicles with the Traxxas telemetry system and the GPS module. They provided that, we bolted them into the vehicle. There's an easy location on the back crossmember where you can drop that GPS module right in. It all ties into the stock receiver and the stock radio with the added Traxxas Link module that goes in there. So then you can sync it up to your iPhone and it will give you a GPS readout of the exact speed of the vehicle in real time. And that is what I used to capture the baseline speeds for this truck. Now, if you're not familiar with the Traxxas TRX6, it does have all the bells and whistles, locking differentials, 2 speeds, all the lights that you see, but that 2-speed. Now, for this type of challenge, likely not something that I'm going to use. High gear, all the time, going to be the route. But I went ahead and tested the baseline speeds in both first and second gear. I'm testing it with a 3S LiPo just to start because that's all that the XL5 ESC that comes in this vehicle stock can handle. Now, on that 3S LiPo through that XL5 in first gear, it got a top speed of 5 miles per hour. Normally, on a trail truck, that's somewhat of a reasonable speed. but for what our purpose is, definitely not, awing us with its performance. Second gear, however, or high gear, this thing has a top speed of 11 miles per hour on 3S. Not too shabby for an out-of-the-box truck that's made to be a trail rig. Pretty impressive when you stack it up against most of the competition. Now, as I mentioned, this also has the locking and unlocking differentials. I think for this challenge, I'm probably going to leave the differentials all open. Now, being that I don't plan on switching gears or locking and unlocking differentials, I really don't know that I need to keep all of those extra servos and wires and cables and everything that goes along with that in this vehicle, because this truck is not light. There's a lot of mass to this vehicle, and with us trying to push this thing to a top speed, pushing mass is kind of your enemy. So going through and making sure things stay in an open position or in high gear and getting rid of all of those extra things we don't need should be on my checklist. Now, of course, even though we're putting in a motor that's capable of a lot of RPMs, we still need to get this thing geared for speed. Now, the transmission, we can adjust gearing with the pinion and spur. And after doing a little bit of math, by just adjusting the pinion and spur to the smallest spur and largest pinion I can get, I'm actually going to be able to get a really good ratio coming out of there. So after doing that math, I don't know that there's any reason to try and take this transmission out and put something different in. It's got all metal gears inside. I don't have a lot of durability concern. The only concern that I have is that it itself has a lot of weight. The gears are large. There's a lot of gears in total. There's shifting mechanisms. The only reason that I think I would swap out this transmission would be for a weight reduction. And lastly, on the topic of gearing, I'm gonna be switching out the stock sintered gear sets for the Traxxas overdrive gear sets. That will reduce the overall amount of reduction even further. Now, if I want to do that in all of the axles in this vehicle, I actually need 4 gear sets because that center axle has 2 pinions in it. So I'm technically going to have a wasted ring gear, but if you want to replace everything in here, you technically need 4 of those gear sets. Now, in the rules, we discussed that yes, we do need to drive both rear axles. However, we don't say that we have to drive the front axle. We could technically disconnect that axle and run it without. Maybe that's a route that I'll go. I'm not sure. I think it all kind of depends on how it changes the handling. So maybe I'll just pull that front drive shaft at one point and see how it drives. See if it's an improvement. I could rip out the rest of the guts to it just to reduce rotating mass and hopefully increase my top speed then. But sometimes having those front wheels pull can make things track a little bit more easily. And I can't say I have any experience trying to drive anything with 4-wheel drive in the rear only at speed. And then we get into tires. My biggest concern specifically is the rear tires. Since we've got 2 rear axles and they're fairly close together, as this thing gets up to some, more substantial speeds, we're gonna probably see tire growth. And if you have too much tire growth here, these tires are going to touch. That is not going to work. So I think that I'm going to be switching to Proline Reaction drag tires. The reason I'm going to choose those initially, at least, is that they're a belted tire, so they won't grow like a normal non-belted tire. That should help me keep things in check. They're also a little bit smaller overall, so while that does affect the rollout or the effective gearing of the total truck, I think that in the end, with the gearing calculations that I've done, I think that I can get this thing to a reasonable speed while using that size tire. Now, I've thought about this a lot, and I thought about maybe sandbagging a little bit in this first intro video, not letting all of my plans kind of get out there, but I don't know that I can help it. So by the time you see this next time, I'm going to take some major steps to transform this vehicle. And the biggest thing that I'm going to do right out of the box is I'm going to do a portal delete. And the reason is that the portals on the TRX bases all have nice gear reduction, which is great with the application that they're actually intended for, but not for speed. I'm going to be able to decrease the gearing on this substantially. And as a side benefit, it's going to lower the truck. Going to those smaller tires, lowering the truck's gonna get everything pushed in here, and we're gonna see a huge transformation of this vehicle from this high riding, off-road capable looking vehicle to a much more pavement pounding design. So that's gonna be my goal. By the next time you see this truck, visually, a huge difference, and hopefully a speed that is at least triple, quadruple the stock number. I'm really hoping to hit that 45 mile an hour number by the next time I drive this truck. And as for my final top speed goal, being that it's the OMG63, my goal is to hit 63 and then maybe just exceed it. I think that the 64 miles an hour is really what I'm hoping is obtainable. It's gonna be sketchy. There's going to be some absolutely painful slides down the pavement, I expect. But hopefully after I get those first upgrades done, then I can really start looking at how to tackle the aerodynamics on this, try to get this brick-shaped body through the air more efficiently. There is a lot of work ahead of us. Once we get into some of the custom design and things like that, I'll be using Fusion 360 to design up my own custom parts for this. We'll be 3D printing some, and I also picked up a new CNC router that will allow me to custom machine some of my own parts here in-house. And I think that that could come in handy for some of my loftier goals for this project in the end. By the next time you see this truck, I think we're going to be looking at aerodynamics. So throw your suggestions in the comments below on what you think we should tackle for aerodynamics. I'm thinking something in the rear to help smooth the air coming off the back. Sadly, I think this top visor is going to have to go because it's just kind of a duck bill here to catch the air. And then cleaning up the air moving underneath of the bottom of this is going to be a pretty big task. So let's hear all of your guys' ideas on that. I'm not gonna concede that 3 mile per hour bonus to Matt yet. He can paint that clear body the fanciest way he wants, but I think that we can get him with the aerodynamic styling that we build around this. I have a lot of work ahead of me. I hope you guys are as excited for the monthly mayhem as I am, and I think that Matt is also. Team America killed it the last time we did a top speed challenge. Hoping for a repeat. I need a clear victory out of Monthly Mayhem. It's been a little while. But that's gonna do it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hit the like button if you do. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.